Notebook should be out. You have to take class notes for your homework tonight. At the top it should be this title, 3-2 Estimating Decimals. The next thing that you need to have in your class notes is the terms that we're going to be using. So the first term, and this should be a new term, is clustering. This is when we round numbers to the same value. So each number that we round is going to be the exact same value. This will make our life easier, make it easy to estimate the value or the sum or the difference or the product or quotient of a problem. Compatible numbers we've used before. These are numbers that are close to the numbers in the problem, so they make our lives easier. We use this mostly with multiplication and division. Okay, let's look at example 1. Example 1, this is from the book, it deals with clustering. So for instance we have, let me back up here just a second. We have 198 and 45 hundredths plus 210 and 6 tenths plus 194 and 4 tenths. I don't want to add these up because I want to make my life easier. I want to make it fast. So I'm going to choose the same number to round these two. I noticed that 198 is pretty close to 200. So that's what I'm rounding that one to. 210, that's pretty close to 200. 194 is pretty close to 200. So anytime it says to use clustering, that's whenever we estimate or round the numbers all to the same number. In this case, it's 200. Then that's easy. 200 plus 200 plus 200 equals 600. Alright, moving on to example 2. For this one, we want to estimate by rounding to the indicated place value. So example 1 is 3 and 92 hundredths plus 6 and 48 hundredths, and it's telling us to round that to the ones place. The ones place in this problem is right here, the 9 and the 4. Okay, so looking at the ones place here, I look at 9. 9 is greater than 5, so I'm going to round that to 4. Then I look at my next number, 4. That's less than 5, so I'm going to round this number to 6. I'm going to keep it at 6. 4 plus 6 is easy to tell that it's 10. This will be a really good strategy to use whenever we are adding and subtracting decimals in our next section, because this is a good way to check and make sure that our answer makes sense. So 3 and 92 hundredths plus 6 and 48 hundredths should be about 10. Okay, let's look at our next example here. So here I have 8 and 6,355 ten-thousandths minus 5 and 39 thousandths. And it's telling me to round this to the hundredths place. So my hundredths place is the 3 in my first number and the 3 in my second number. I look at 3. 3 is less than 5, so I'm going to round this number to 8 and 64 hundredths. And then my next number, I'm going to round that. I look at my 3. 3 is less than 5, so I'm going to round this to 5 and 4 hundredths. Okay, and I can't go back in my recording and make sure I said that right, so I'm going to go over it one more time. When it says look at the hundredths place, I find the hundredths place value, which happens to be 3 in both of my numbers, in both of my terms. I look at the value to the right of that, which is 5. Because it's 5, if it's 5 or more, the value to the right of our place value, we round up. So that's why it becomes 8 and 64 hundredths. That's why the 3 goes to a 4. On my next term, I look at the 3 and then I look at the number to the right of it. 9 is obviously greater than 5, so I'm going to round my 3 up to a 4. So that's where I get those numbers. Alright, let's continue to solve this problem. So I'm going to line them up like this. My decimal points, whenever I add or subtract, have to be right above each other. We'll talk more about that in the next section, but this is good practice for that. So I get 8 and 64 hundredths minus 5 and 4 hundredths 4 minus 4 is 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. My decimal point lines up, I keep it in that straight line, and then 8 minus 5 is 3. That means 3 6/10 is my answer. Okay, our last couple of examples here are on compatible numbers. So this is example 3 in the book. So my first problem, I have 26 76/100 times 2 93/100. I want to find numbers that are compatible. This means numbers that are easy to multiply or divide. In the first one, 26 is pretty close to 25, and the second term, 3 93/100, is pretty close to 3. So I'm going to do 25 times 3. This gets me 75. This means that 26 76/100 times 2 93/100 is approximately 75. This will be another great tool to use whenever we're multiplying and dividing decimals. Okay, last example. I have 42 64/100 divided by 16 51/100. So here I'm thinking of terms that are compatible again. What are two numbers that are relatively close to these, but that are going to be easy for me to divide? For the first one, 42 is pretty close to 45. And for my second term, 16 is pretty close to 15. 45 divided by 15, this is easy to do, is 3. So 42 64/100 divided by 16 51/100 is approximately 3. Alrighty, let's go back through my video here, and I'm going to start highlighting things that you should have in your class notes. So you should do a little double check and make sure that you have these elements in there. Okay, the title of your page should be 3-2 Estimating Decimals. So that should be in there. You should include these terms. You should have clustering is rounding numbers to the same value, and compatible numbers are numbers that are close to the numbers in the problem. You need to have example 1 in here. So make sure that your work looks just like mine. I have these numbers all lined up, and then I'm drawing arrows to where I'm rounding, and then here's my answer. Okay, example 2. Okay, you need to have this example, the one in yellow, in your notes. Make sure that it has in here ones, so this way you know how to round whenever it tells you to round to the ones place value. You should line up your terms like I did here. Put what you're estimating right below it. And finally put your answer of 10. Okay, the next one is a definite must, because this one's, it looks harder than the other one, I think. So include this one in your notes. Show all of your steps. So underline where we're rounding. Include what the values are that we are rounding to right below the numbers. And finally, you should have this lined up nicely. It has to be written like this. And your answer. Okay, example 3, last page. Let me change my highlighter color. So make sure you include these examples. Oops. These little squiggly lines right here mean approximate, where my equal sign is like 25 times 3, that really does equal 75. But 26 76/100 times 2 93/100 approximately equals 75. So that's why we use those terms. Okay, once you all have that finished, you are done with your homework for tonight, and I will see you tomorrow.